Israel was invaded yesterday by Islamist militants slaughtering civilians, taking hostages and live streaming it all for the enjoyment of leftists around the world who for some reason pull themselves ragged over Hamas, even though Hamas would chuck them off a roof for being non-binary genderqueer. It's weird to have Islamic extremists called Hamas, by the way, as they can't eat ham and they're strictly banned from each other's ass. But anyway, everyone was appalled by the atrocities. I mean, I say everyone was appalled, a lot of people weren't. Left-wing Novara media fell over themselves to get the worst possible takes onto the internet, but I think their commissioning editor, Rivkah Brown, took the biscuit with this. She said, "Today should be a day of celebration for supporters of democracy and human rights worldwide as Gazans break out of their open-air prison and Hamas fighters cross into their colonizers' territory. The struggle for freedom is rarely bloodless and we shouldn't apologise for it." This doesn't even follow basic logic. Israel is the one truly free and democratic country with human rights in the whole of the Middle East. If Rivkah really cared about democracy and human rights, she'd want Israel to expand its borders. In recent years, Israel has been relaxing restrictions on the Gaza Strip, allowing 20,000 workers to come into Israel each day. But if Palestinians are free, hardline Hamas lose their power and their funding from Iran. They're not freedom fighters at all. Scottish leader Humza Yousaf put the atrocities into perspective by saying he spent Saturday morning with his wife on the phone to her family in Gaza following the violence in the region. Yeah, let's not forget the real victim, Humza Yousaf's phone bill. Don't worry Humza, I'm sure you can expense it. Scotland has a history of support for Palestinians, by the way, with Dundee twinned with Nablus. Although to be fair, when the people in Nablus saw the state of Dundee, they arranged a whip round. Porn star Khalifa said, "If you can look at the situation in Palestine and not be on the side of Palestinians, then you're on the wrong side of apartheid, and history will show that in time." Well done Mia, you've somehow managed to do something less classy than sucking strangers' cocks for money. You're a porn star, you'd literally be stoned to death by the people you're shilling for. But pretty much anyone who'd be targeted by Hamas seems to support them, like these queers for Palestine, presumably from the makers of Turkeys for Christmas. It's so weird. If it was up to left-wing people and under 30s, the West would be backing Hamas. Manchester held an anti-Israel march while Israelis were being killed. Leftists have been so conditioned to support barbarism as it's the fault of civilization. Those crimes were committed as a result of systemic oppression. And Islamists are defined by the left as minorities, even though there are 2 billion Muslims worldwide and only about 15 million Jews. So who's really the minority? And they complain about Israel's occupation of land. But I thought the left loved immigration. And they say illegal settlements. What happened to no immigrants are illegal? One of the architects of the disastrous Iraq war that killed up to 1 million civilians, Alastair Campbell, saw the butchery and felt a stirring in his loins and tweeted that he was glad that Biden was in power instead of Trump. Bear in mind, Trump didn't start any wars and every petty tyrant in the world was too shit scared of Trump to try anything, so I can only read this as Alastair actually being glad of the bloodshed. King of the urban leftoids, Sadiq Khan, said cryptically, "Tragically, we know that violence in the Middle East can lead to a rise in hate crime in London. I'm in touch with senior officers at the Met and communities across our city. Let me be clear, hate crime in London will not be tolerated, now or ever." He's clearly intoning that hate crime against Muslims will rise, but the hate I saw in the streets of London came from people waving Palestinian flags and celebrating the attacks on Israel. Remember when Suella Braverman was lambasted for saying that multiculturalism had failed? Well, here's some footage of it failing in real time right in front of you. If only there was a simple, obvious action that we as a country could take to ensure that the ideologies, conflicts and hatreds of the rest of the world don't take root in the UK. This one action would also reduce house prices and pressure on public services, and it would raise wages and increase social cohesion. Nah, we can't have border control. Apparently the country will grind to a halt if we stop people coming across in boats because we don't have enough people to wipe people's bums in nursing homes. And if there's one thing our pensioners insist on, it's having their bum wiped by a confused jihadi with wet socks. but we should probably get used to it. This conflict looks likely to increase the flow of asylum seekers into Europe. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "We will avenge this black, dark day. We will turn every Arab land into ruins. All the places in this evil city where Hamas terrorists controls and hides in. Residents of Gaza, get out of there now or face the gates of hell over you." Now, over 2 million people live in the Gaza Strip, and it sounds like they're going to be going somewhere. Also, our immigration policies have already let in millions of people who are ideologically aligned with Hamas. And wokeism has taught our youth that Hamas are just poor oppressed minorities fighting for their freedom. So what we're going to see is big protests across Europe against the Israeli military retaliation, and at some point the police will shoot a protester, there'll be a George Floyd incident, and it's all going to kick off big style. I asked the Israeli Prime Minister if I could email him a copy of this video. He said, "Yeah, but I'm not on Hotmail." I said, "Ben, do you mean not in Yahoo?" Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, what's wrong with you? Like and subscribe please, and sign up to my Patreon. I'm doing a Patreon only live stream this Friday, so if you have any questions for me to answer in the stream, let me know.